Not just for those heading up the Sea to Sky
Or
to see us,
down.
because our next guest is interested in what the traffic's like going down the Sea to Sky, because anybody who's done the drive from Vancouver to Squamish will admit it's one of the most beautiful drives in the world, one of the most scenic. But how plausible is it to make that trip every day, both ways? Well, our next guest couldn't be happier with it. Craig Cherlet is a Squamish resident who commutes to the Lower Mainland 4 days a week, and he's with us here this morning. Hello there.
Good morning.
Tell us about the commute. What's it like every morning?
It's actually pretty pleasant. There's nowhere near as many people on the highway than probably out in the Lower Mainland coming west from the east. So it's it's pleasant. It's usually not crowded, and of course, like you said, it's a beautiful drive. So you can't really complain. It's pretty relaxing to kind of start your day rather than being stuck in traffic per se.
Where do you work?
I own my own business with my wife, marketing and technology consulting. So we work with a lot of different companies in the Lower Mainland, some Crown Corps, some financial institutions. And
What time would you leave in the morning?
sometimes I leave right around this time, actually, 6:15, between 6 and 6:30. I usually leave, which gets me into Vancouver around the Burnaby area in about 55 minutes to an hour.
I can't imagine what it's like this time of year to see the dawn break over the mountains as well. Is that a distraction at all?
I don't know if it's a distraction or just a grounding kind of thing.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning and rather than, looking at the bumper in front of somebody else for an hour, you really kind of have these majestic views to the left and to the right. And, every day is different. I really like the point where I turn around Horseshoe Bay some mornings and you get this beautiful sunset and you see Mount Baker in the back, and it's absolutely majestic, to the point where I've pulled over to take pictures some mornings because it's really that beautiful.
Why did you decide to move to Squamish?
Well, my wife and I moved here from Manitoba, and in Manitoba there's very much a culture of you have a house in the city and a cottage on the lake somewhere, and when we moved here, that ideal, I guess, is not as plausible here, where a cottage can cost you $500,000 and a house can cost you $1 million. So it doesn't necessarily make the most sense. So we tried a couple of different options. We've lived downtown. We've lived on Bowen Island, where the commute was much further than this, and it was that reason we moved to Squamish. The commute wasn't quite as good, I guess, on Bowen, a little bit more challenging.
Before the construction of the Sea to Sky, the reconstruction of the Sea to Sky Highway, the commute from Squamish to Vancouver was very different. What impact has the new highway had on residents in Squamish?
I think safety is a big thing. Yes, the highway's not 100% perfect, but it's a very good highway. Being on it for the last 3 years, the company that takes care of the highway does an amazing job. There's hardly any gravel on the highway, so I think it's a very well maintained highway, and I think it is well designed. So I think it's pretty safe, which makes a big difference.
Would you call this a commuter city?
I don't know if I would label it that per se. I'm sure there's a lot of commuters, but I don't think the majority of the population commutes. So it may be transitioning that to some point, but I wouldn't necessarily label it that just yet.
Craig, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Enjoy that drive every morning.
Thanks.
Craig Cherlet, who is a Squamish resident who commutes daily from here to the Lower Mainland. Love to hear from you on this. Would you like to live in Squamish if you worked in Vancouver? Would you be happy with that commute? I'm sure you've done the drive. You know what it's like. Could you do it every day? Or, if you're a victim of Vancouver's daily rush hour traffic problems,